Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of the Emma Gunn Show. And here we go. We are 6 weeks in to the £10 weight loss challenge. And if you've been here since the beginning, you'll know that what started out as a £10 weight loss challenge is actually something slightly different, which I'll explain in a moment. But we are still at £5 weight loss. But why should I not be despondent about that? Because you could argue that in 6 weeks, a £5 loss is pretty lame. It's less than £1 a week, but this is where things changed. If you've been here for a while, I'm sorry that you're hearing this again, but here we go. Losing £10 is something that can be achieved via a restriction in calories, a calorie deficit for a sustained period of time. We can all figure out a way to do that. There are millions of diets out there that will get you to that goal pretty quickly. The reason why it shifted is because not long into this challenge, Zana Morris, the nutritionist and trainer, said, well, look, you're saying that you want to build muscle, but you're also saying that you want to lose £10. But the truth is, if you gain that lean muscle and you lose body fat, you might actually see the scale stay the same or move up. So that's why things have changed a little bit. This is why I'm not quite so wedded to this idea of losing the £10 as I was, but it is still a very good thing, metric, number, goal to sort of have my eye on in the distance. But as I say that, I realise I should have my little stats up, because I've got a little spreadsheet. Obviously I have, because after I started speaking to Zana, I started measuring my body fat percentage and my muscle mass muscle mass percentage on my digital scales. Not entirely accurate, I hasten to add. It is not one of those DEXA scans. It is not a highly accurate measure, but it is giving me metrics nonetheless. And by looking at those metrics regularly, I am seeing if there are any shifts, any changes. And that is just showing me, much like the number that indicates my weight in pounds or kilograms or stone, it just tells me where I am and lets me know where I've come to from where I was. It's very much a compass, a map, directions, and what have you. And the good news is that my body fat in those 6 weeks has dropped by 2%, just under 2%. And my muscle mass has actually, after going up, has actually dropped. So that's a little bit upsetting, to be honest. It's actually the same as it was at the beginning of this challenge. But during this, again, imperfect metric, during this challenge, it actually went up a little bit. Then it went up a little bit more. Then it dropped significantly. And now it's gone up again, but it is still, the trend is still down, which is not ideal. So we just need to keep focused and we need to keep going. But the thing I wanted to tell you about this week really has to do with the composition of what I'm eating. I just wanted to lean into this a little bit because a lot of people have been asking. And I wrote something on my Substack I wrote it yesterday, I published it today, about the things that I have changed in order to lose this £10. And I said, if you'd like to see a food diary, let me know. And a lot of people have said, why, yes, we would like to see a food diary. So I want to try and compile that, but I also wanted to talk about, and I mentioned it briefly in the Substack article, the way in which I've changed the way that I'm eating in order to achieve this goal. Now, forget about the goal for a second. By changing the composition of my food, I am feeling so much leaner, so much less digestive stress, i.e. bloating, and maybe digestive unpredictability. And I also just feel as though my energy levels are better, my sleep is better, and that could all be going hand in hand with intermittent fasting. But it's almost as though this challenge, which was very sort of like a knee-jerk, you know what, I'm not feeling great. I feel like I'm not looking the way that I want to look, which makes me worry that I'm slipping into a habit and going in a direction that I don't want to go into. So I'm going to pull the reins really tight and make some changes. And it turns out that I think every single change that I've made during this challenge is actually, it's having a much bigger impact than just that kind of like, we're going to lose £10. It's a feeling, it's an outlook, it's a reminder of what it feels to actually put the effort into what you consume and what you do with your body, and how that then makes you feel energetically, just in terms of how much energy do I have in the morning, how much energy do I have in the evening, whether I can say energy at 10 minutes past 7. Because this is the thing, it isn't, okay, the clocks have changed, so it's lighter in the evening, and I wouldn't have been able to film this a month ago at this time. But also I'm like, the day's not over yet. Let's keep going. That is definitely a shift and a change. And I can't help but think that a lot of this is to do with the dietary changes. So it's very much been working towards this high protein, low fat diet. And I am also really mindful to get in fiber and vegetables. So for example, today, and there's something I want to tell you about in a minute, but today I broke my fast this morning with an entire bag of baby spinach, which is 240 grams, which comes in at about 6 grams of protein. And I think it's about 2 portions of your 5 a day, with 2 poached eggs and chili oil. But I drain off all the chili oil. Like, I stick it in a sieve and I let it sit for ages. I mix it around. I get all the oil out of it because I don't actually like the oil. I like the chili. I like the taste of the chili. So that's what I had. I also had with that 100 grams, it was 200 grams of 0% fat Greek yogurt and 20 grams of a muesli, just to give it something interesting in there. And so from there, I got something like 20 grams of protein. Then from the spinach and the eggs, I got another 20 or just under. So it was around 40 grams of protein for my breakfast. Then around 5 o'clock, I realized I was really busy today, so I hadn't eaten anything. And I was like, oh gosh, I must have something else. And I didn't really fancy a snack. I thought, actually, I'm hungry enough to eat my meal, which is what's been happening when I've been working from home. And I made the Matthew McConaughey tuna salad. So again, around 40 grams of protein in there. And then about an hour ago, I had a protein shake with some collagen and some yogurt in it, because I'm trying to get to 140 grams of protein a day. I think today was about 126, so I'm doing all right. But I feel very full, I feel satisfied, and I think that's a really important thing to talk about when it comes to these changes that I have made in my diet. It doesn't feel like I'm restricting. I don't feel as though I am missing out. There will 100% be a day when I say, you know what, today's going to be the day that I go and get the truffle, mushroom, and goat's cheese pizza from M&S because I want it. But I don't feel like that every day. And this was something I talked about in the article on Substack. I think that the combination of whacking up my protein and lowering my fat, and also really minimizing the amount of carbohydrates I'm having, and I have a proper carbohydrate, like I had a tortilla wrap, like a high protein tortilla wrap a couple of times last week. Like, I'm using it sort of as and when. You could call it carb cycling. But if I feel like my energy's dipping, or I think, actually, you know what, I need a bit of something else, then I will incorporate something like a high protein tortilla wrap or something like that into my day. But actually, I think keeping things high protein, low fat, and really minimal carb, obviously there's loads of veg in the mix, I honestly think that I've quieted food noise. And this was evidence to me yesterday. So this is the thing that I wanted to tell you. And this is not something I'm encouraging you to do. It's because of all of the questions I've had about intermittent fasting. I thought I would talk about it because I've even been surprised. But the only reason I think I've been able to do what I did is because I have been intermittent fasting now for nearly 2 months. So today I completed a fast of 40 hours. Was it intentional? Not really. But I was away with family on Saturday. I was like, do you know what? I wasn't creating my own meals or anything like that. And I thought, okay, well, this is all really tasty. And I had a couple of chocolates, thought about having some drink, didn't have any drink. And I just thought, you know what? I can even feel from that one meal that, because it's so different from what I've been doing normally, I didn't really love it. So I stopped eating. So I started my fasting window, and I thought, you know what, tomorrow I'll have like a really vegetable-y day, which sounds really daft. Anyway, the point is that I woke up, had my espresso, went for a walk, and I thought, you know what, I'm actually not feeling, I don't have any hunger pangs at the moment. I don't feel like I need anything. So why don't I just break the fasting window when I feel hungry? So, like I said, I went for a walk, had a black coffee, drank loads of water, had a bath, did some work, did some stretching, just had a really lazy Sunday evening. And then I felt very tired. It had been a really busy, long week. There's been a whole load of stuff recently whereby I keep filling up the diary with stuff, and then last minute things come in or deadlines happen. And I'm finding that I'm having to change the diary up last minute, which is very frustrating, not just for me, but obviously for people that I let down last minute. It's been annoying me, but there's been a lot of stuff going on. It's been quite tiring. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to turn in early. And even though I got to about 8 o'clock and I thought, well, I could eat now, I thought, again, I'm not feeling hungry. So let's just see. And so I woke up this morning, did a workout, posterior chain and glutes. If it had been a high energy workout, I wouldn't have worked out fasted, but it was quite a low energy workout, if you like. So I thought, well, let's just see how I get on. Felt absolutely fine. And then I had my spinach and my eggs and my yogurt and my granola thingy. But a few months ago, there's no way I would have been able to do that, because I would have got into it and I would have been very aware of the fact that I wasn't eating. But I think realizing or installing this intermittent fasting has made me pay much more attention to my hunger signals, and I'm actually able to discern what's a real hunger signal and what is just I fancy a bit of that. And it's genuinely taken me by surprise that this has happened. Again, I'm not encouraging this. The reason why I thought about extending it, and I thought maybe I'll do a 24-hour fast, is because I'd seen something come up on social media, maybe because I've been looking at my fasting app on my phone, or maybe because of the things that I've been engaging with on social. My algorithm has started showing me videos from people talking about the benefits of longer fasting. And I watched this brilliant 6-part documentary that was on the Disney Channel. I think it's called Limitless. I've talked about it before, but it's Chris Hemsworth and Dr. Peter Attia. And it's really fantastic. And there are various episodes on different longevity hacks. Hacks is a terrible way of describing it, but the things that you can do for longevity. And one of them is fasting. And I think in that one, Dr. Peter Attia says to Chris, you know, you're going to fast for 72 hours. Maybe it's even more. I wonder if it's even like 92. Anyway, it's a long time. And this stuff had been coming up saying how actually, if you really want to feel the benefits of intermittent fasting, if you want to feel those benefits that people talk about when they talk about intermittent fasting, like increased cardiovascular health, autophagy, like the cleaning up of the cells, this kind of regenerative power of the regenerative power of fasting, of giving your body a break from digesting, then you have to do longer periods. 16 hours, 18 hours, which is what I've been averaging, is not enough. You need to do 24 hours or more. And so it was in my head, and because it wasn't presenting any discomfort, perhaps it's because I'm at a time in my cycle when I'm not being pumped full of hormones saying, eat something. But I just found it very easy to do it yesterday, again, because I've been doing it for however long. And so I'm quite practiced at it. I would not suggest starting out intermittent fasting or starting out any kind of fasting with a 24-hour fast. Start with 10 hours, go up to 14 hours, then 16, then 18, if you want to go that far. 16 seems to be the sweet spot that people most enjoy and get on with. It's the one that is talked about the most online. But genuinely, 10 hours with a 14-hour eating window, 14 hours fasting, 10 hours, like switch it all up, start off slow. And again, one of the things I love about this, and we've been talking about this in the comments underneath my Substack, is the fact that it is really flexible. The fact that if you have a day where, say, for example, I was supposed to be at a work dinner tomorrow night, but it was going to be a really late finish. And I thought, well, I'll just push my fasting window so I start eating a bit later tomorrow. And then I'll finish eating a bit later, and then I'll just bring it back the next day. It'll be fine. It'll be no problem. So that's what I really like about intermittent fasting. But coming back to that 24-hour fast, it has made me realize that just having that break in place, for me especially, has made me, in the evenings when I think, oh, I fancy something, I can think, no, I'm fasting now. For some reason, I just obey the rules and I don't go, no, I'm not. I just turn the app off. I'll delete the app from my phone. I'll pretend that I never heard of intermittent fasting. I just am quite obedient when it comes to all of that. Anyway, the 24-hour fast, which ended up being 40 hours. Let's just be honest here. I was asleep for not most of that. I was asleep for a lot of it. So it's not, because it was Saturday night and Sunday night. Yeah, so I was 16 hours of that would have been in bed. So quite easy when you think about it. But I didn't necessarily feel, oh, I feel renewed, I feel reborn, I feel like I'm working more efficiently as an organism, as a human being. Oh, my brain, I didn't feel like Bradley Cooper in, weirdly, a film called Limitless. Called Limitless, isn't it? Anyway, I didn't feel like that. The thing that was most confusing is I woke up this morning expecting to sort of be like grumbly tummy, nothing. Expected to sort of do my workout warm up and feel a little bit lightheaded. I was like, no, I feel fine. And then did the workout, felt fine. It was almost the fact that I didn't feel anything. If you had said to me, if you had said to me, did you eat yesterday? Well, obviously I would have known, but I wouldn't have registered anything about how I felt this morning, feeling like not having eaten for 40 hours, which was very surprising to me. And made me think, I think that this intermittent fasting and this way of eating, which is high protein and low fat, which is not something I want to do forever, by the way, but I think observing the fact that high protein, low fat and minimal carbs does seem to work well for me. So that's something to bear in mind in the future when I get back into maintenance, is just interesting in the sense of I don't have that food noise. I sleep better. I feel awake when I'm awake. I'm far less likely to spend time on apps, like just zoning out, which I can do. I mean, I remember last year really struggling with going to appointments in London, getting the train home and just being like this on the train. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get that. Just my head just nodding back and forth. And just the fact that I was sitting down, my body was going, so please, can we sleep now? And my brain's going, no, because we're on a train and you might miss your stop and there are people watching and it's not safe. But my body was going, but I want to sleep. And I just don't have that at the moment. And again, you could say I'm doing it at a time when the seasons are changing and everyone's feeling a little more sprightly, but it's not the same. Anyway, again, like I said, I'm not encouraging fasting for long periods. And definitely, even if you are beginning intermittent fasting, start with those smaller fasting windows so that your body can begin to get used to it. The only reason I was able to do a 40-hour fast is because I have been doing it for 6 to 8 weeks. I've forgotten now, but I've been doing it for a substantial amount of time. I have fallen into a habit whereby it seems that 18-6 is actually where I'm usually finding myself, and that's working well for me. So really, to extend it a little bit wasn't that much of a challenge. It didn't feel that much of a challenge, but it's just interesting the way that changing the way that you eat can make you feel a certain way and can make your appetite for certain things completely change. It can quiet your want for a particular type of food group, for example, but equally having those gaps can just turn off or at least quiet those sort of snacky snack voices that I am very, very bad at giving into. Like that is something that I do struggle with and probably will for the rest of my life. But it's interesting that during this intermittent fasting, I have found it far easier to just completely just dismiss them before they become a full, robust thought. So intermittent fasting, I think it's really good. I do think there are lots of benefits. I'll probably do a Substack feature, or I can even talk on here about the real benefits of intermittent fasting, because the health benefits are many and varied, and they extend way beyond things like food noise. In fact, I've never actually heard anybody talk about intermittent fasting and food noise. If anything, I've had people say, I'm in recovery from an eating disorder and I've been told stay the heck away from intermittent fasting. But I do not feel that any of this has made me, I don't feel like I am unsatisfied. I don't feel like I am restricting. I don't feel like I'm missing out. This way of doing things feels extremely comfortable. And there is very much a narrative online, particularly on social media, that any kind of weight loss effort that falls into this category. And this category right now, I mean unassisted, so without the intervention of a GLP-1, that there's something that somehow that equals misery. And I reject that notion, that the idea, and people talk about, or they show pictures from the past and they say, this is me when I was slim or skinny or whatever word they want to use. And they say, but I was miserable because I was this, that, and the other. And that's a really sad place to be. And I've been there myself, but it's not the story for everybody. Losing weight does not equal misery. So that's what I'm finding. I'm actually finding this to be quite empowering. I'm finding it to be, it's confirming a lot of what I learned on my way out of an eating disorder. It's making me reconnect again with my body, like doing the strength training specific exercises is making me feel a lot more confident in my own skin. It's that competency. It's that feeling of, I'm going to train this body part today. I'm going to absolutely blitz it and I'm really going to go for it. That's what I'm really enjoying. And I think it's the agency. It's the having this sense of, I'm making these changes and they feel really, really good. And they do. And they might not be right for everybody. You might look at this and you might think, you know what, Emma, I can take about 50% of what you're saying, but the rest goes in the bin. And that should be how it is. It shouldn't be that you go, yes, 100% of everything that you're saying is true. It should be that some of it is for you and some of it isn't. But I'm just sharing that, like at the beginning of this, when I thought I was going to get to that 10-pound weight loss, I was doing it the wrong way and I had to reject some of it and embrace something completely new and different in order to make the progress that I'm making. Now, as I said, we are still at a 5-pound weight loss, which is less than a pound a week. But it feels as though it's going in the right direction. And even if I look at the pictures, like every Monday, I take a picture of myself in my gym kit, in the same exercise gear as every Monday I use the same exercise gear, and I can see a difference. And even though it's a 5-pound weight loss, there is definitely a shift in bloating. There looks to be like, I mean, I think I've got chubby thighs or whatever, but I can see tone in places that, or I can see a leanness or a definition in places that wasn't there before, that isn't about the weight loss. It's about maybe inflammation. It's about the bloating. It's about all of the other things. The weight is kind of the big umbrella term, if you like, that we use to mean all these different things that can change when you change up how you're doing things. But really, as I said in the Substack feature, the things that are changing are composition of food. So it's high protein, it's low fat. I'm trying to get as much fiber in as possible because that's really important when you've got a high protein diet. Training specific body parts is absolutely vital. Absolutely vital, I think. And even though I moved away from it because I was getting bored of it, and I do love those full body cardio exercises that I was doing and the mobility and strength stuff that I was doing and the Pilates and strength stuff that I was doing, there were also really wonderful things about doing the isolation workouts where you just really focus on like your quads for half an hour. You really focus on your chest and back for half an hour. It feels so good to, at the end of the week, sort of take a rest day and think, I can feel everything needs a bit of a break now. That's great. Because everything's really had its turn, and then you start the week again and then you blitz them again. That all feels really, really excellent. So that's where we are this week. That's where we have been. I'm hoping for a little bit more progress, but actually less than the weight in terms of the number on the scale. I'm really hoping that muscle mass percentage goes up next week. I'm really pleased that the body fat's come down, but it's a shame that the muscle mass has come down as well. I need that. I want that to go up again. So watch this space. That's what I'll update you on. I'm going to update you on all of it, obviously, but those are the things that I'm probably going to be really mindful of. So that's a little bit of a wee update this week. I have written about this on Substack. I'm also going to be publishing midweek about this on Substack as well. So make sure you're subscribed. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you on the next one.